All right, good morning, everybody. Yes, good morning. Because if you look at the time on the microwave, it says that it's 5:07 in the morning. So why am I waking up this early? I'm making one of my favorite things ever, barbecue pulled pork. Now, I'm waking up at 5 in the morning to start this because this is going to take a long time. It's going to take about 12 hours to do. And that's including prep time, getting the grill going. It's going to take a really long time. So you gotta wake up early, all right? It's a labor of love, but it is so worth it. Now, I get a lot of people asking me questions, and this is the one I get most questions about. How do you do it? How do you go about it? What's the magic behind it? You hear all these different people, all these pit masters and barbecue competitions, and they have their secrets and everything. Well, there's no secrets today. I'm showing you everything from start to finish, how I set up the grill. I'm going to show you how to use the wood to get the good smoke, how much of the wood, what cut of the meat I'm going to use. I'm going to show you how I even make my rub. No secrets with that. Show you how to put the meat on the grill, how to cook it from start to finish. I'm going to show you every step today. I'm going to start by going ahead, setting up the grill. We're going to get into that first. And then while that grill is set up for indirect heat and the coals are preheating, then we'll get into prepping the meat, all right? So I hope you guys enjoy this one, all right? So let's go ahead and start working on the grill. All right, guys, so now we're going to get into how we set up the grill. We're setting this up a little bit different than if we were going to make hamburgers or hot dogs, all right? We're not grilling, we're barbecuing. All right, the difference is when you grill, you have a high, intense heat, 350, 400 degrees for a short period of time. But we're not doing that when we barbecue. We want low and slow. That's the key. And it's going to be on indirect heat, okay? Normally we put fire under the meat. Well, now we're going to put the fire off to the side. So as you can see, it's a little bit different right now. When we set this up, where that charcoal chimney is, that's where the pork is going to be. Now, don't use lighter fluid when lighting up coals, all right? Use a charcoal chimney. That's the way to do it. Now, underneath that, it's not there now, but we're going to have a metal pan to catch the drippings from the pulled pork, okay? Now, on the right side here, if you notice, is where the coals are going to be. So we have a layer of unlit coals right now, all right? On top of that, I'm going to put a couple pieces of wood, all right? This is just a hickory wood. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on top of the unlit coals, all right? And then I'm going to bury it with some more unlit coals. Now, this is how this is going to work. This is going to aid in that low and slow. The wood is going to give us some smoke, which that's what we want. And these coals are unlit. And on top of that, we're going to put the lit coals, okay? What's going to happen is those lit coals from the charcoal are going to slowly transfer their heat to the unlit coals in the wood, and that's going to make this catch slower and give it that low and slow temperature. So once we put those coals on at first, it's just going to be around 300 to 350 degrees. It's going to be a little high. We don't want it that high. But once the lit coals, right now, those die down and transfer their heat over, that's when we're going to get a constant, nice 250, 200 even. And that's going to give us our low and slow for a good several hours, which is what we want. Okay? So I'm going to go put a little bit more charcoal on top of that to really bury it. And then we'll just let this preheat, and then we'll start getting ready to prep the meat. All right, so now that the grill is preheating, I'm going to get into how we prep the pork. So I've got here a pork shoulder, a Boston butt. This one's about 8 pounds, all right? We get into the difference between this and a picnic shoulder in a little bit. I've got a rub. Any sort of rub you find that you want to use, go ahead and use it. This one's a brown sugar based rub. It's the one that I've come up with. I love it. I swear by it. So I'll show you how to get into that in a little bit. And the mustard. Okay. Now, and because it's early, you're probably gonna need a cup of coffee too. So you want to use a Boston butt as opposed to what's known as a picnic shoulder. If you notice this Boston butt, it's actually pretty uniform in size, okay? Doesn't matter if you get it from the store or the butcher, they're all going to be pretty uniform in size. You can use a picnic shoulder. The reason I don't really like using that is because it kind of tapers to where the leg is, so that way you're going to kind of get some uneven cooking, okay? So that's why I prefer a Boston butt. This is bone in. You want the bone in, all right? That's going to help with the flavor, all right? So also, if you try to take the bone out, you're just going to butcher this, all right? This is just one big piece of meat, and you want to keep it that way for the entire time that it's cooking. All right. The brown sugar rub, we've got, here it is right here. Again, I told you, no secrets. A cup of brown sugar, half a cup of garlic powder, half a cup of kosher salt, half a cup of paprika, 2 tablespoons Italian seasoning, 2 tablespoons of dried minced onion, 1 tablespoon of dry yellow mustard, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, a tablespoon of cumin, half a tablespoon of ground black pepper, and this is the other one, 2 tablespoons of lemon pepper. A lot of them don't have that. So this is the rub. This is what I use all the time when I make pulled pork. I'll use this when I make ribs, all sorts of stuff, okay? And then the other ingredient that we're using is yellow mustard. This is not for flavor, okay? This is to really do 2 things. One, it's gonna hold the rub onto the pork, and the other thing is that the ingredients and the mustard are really gonna help get that nice bark on the outside of the pork. So it helps the brown sugar rub stick on the pork and really builds that bark that we love on our pulled pork. Yeah, I guess it's too early in the morning to talk. I'm gonna go have some more coffee, and I'm gonna go ahead and prep the pork, and you guys can check out what I'm doing. All right, so I took the pork out of the package. I rinsed it and dried it off with some paper towels, put it on a cooking sheet, and we are ready to go. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna apply some mustard to this. All right, now one thing I want to show you first, notice that we've got this nice layer of fat on it. That's called a fat cap. We want to keep that. Don't try to cut that off, all right? We don't want to trim that. We want that fat. And the bottom and the rest of it is just that pork, okay? I'm going to cook it with the the fat cap side up, okay? And you're going to understand why a little bit later on, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start with some mustard. Now again, this mustard's not going on for flavor. This is going on to hold that rub and really aid in the caramelization to really get that bark. All right, look, I know it's 5:30 in the morning right now and you're not really used to getting dirty this early. Just do it. Oh, that's my alarm. See, I actually woke up early. I was so excited. So just go ahead, get your hands in it, get dirty. So again, I want to pay attention to where this fat cap is, okay? So right now it's on top. I'm going to flip it over. We're going to put mustard on this entire thing. Now it's on the bottom. Now the reason it's so important to put the fat cap on the top when we're grilling and to pay attention to that is as this cooks, that low and slow, that fat cap's going to melt. And it's going to melt all the way into that pork. And it's going to really aid in making it super moist, okay? All right, so we've got this thing covered in mustard, a nice light layer. Nothing too much. I'm just going to rinse my hands quick. And then we're going to get into applying that rub. Okay? Now, like I said, this rub is what's going to make the bark of the pork. So we're going to use a fair amount of it. It may seem like a lot in that can that we made, that jar, but we're going to be using a lot of it. All right. And again, it's just a lot of brown sugar and a lot of spices and seasonings. Most of them you're going to already have in your pantry. Now again, you're going to make a mess, and that is okay. Now we want to cover this thing completely. So we're going to get the sides, get all of it, okay? And again, this is one of those things that as you're doing it, you think it's nuts that you're doing it at 5:30 in the morning. But once this is done, this is going to turn out fantastic. Now, the other thing I didn't mention is that you don't need a fancy smoker, like one of those $1,000 professional grade smokers to do this. You could do this on a $40, $50 tailgate grill easily. All that's important is that you set up the coals so that you have it on indirect heat, low and slow. That's it. So it doesn't matter. I've done it on a $40 grill and it's come out fantastic. So as long as you set up the coals kind of like I showed you, where the coals are not underneath the meat, they're off to the side, you can cook this on anything. All right. So I flipped it. The fat cap is now up. I do it this way, so then this way I can just go take it right from the tray and put it right on the grill exactly as is. I'm just gonna make sure everything is covered, but it looks like it is. Oh, missed a spot over here. Make sure everything is good to go. This is gonna be fantastic. Now, yeah, I'm making a lot. 8 pounds is gonna make a lot. You're gonna take the bone out, but it's probably gonna yield about a good 5.5, 6 pounds of meat when we're all said and done. This is one of those things where it's great to freeze so you can use it again later. And oops, throw some over there. All right. Now, I am using a lot of this rub. Once you use this rub, like some of this is extra, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't try to put this back in. Once it's on the tray, that's it. Point of no return. All right. This pork, the sugar is not going back into the canister. All right. We're not trying to save any of this rub. All right. So I think we're pretty much good to go with that. Yeah, it's a mess, right? But like I said, this is one of those things where it's a labor of love. Once this is done, you're gonna see it's totally worth it. So the coals have a few more minutes to go, and then we're gonna get this bad boy started. All right, so while the grill is finishing up preheating, we got the pork done. I just want to take a little minute to talk about things that you're gonna need and things that you're not gonna need. You can go into these grilling stores and you can see just tons of like these random grilling accessories that you think may help you with pulled pork. Here's what you're gonna need: spatula, tongs. That's really it. Now, the one other thing that I really do recommend that I use basically anytime I grill are these. All right, heat-proof mitts. These things withstand up to 500, 600 degrees. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of heat that it can withstand. These are fantastic when you're pouring the coals from the chimney to your grill once they're done preheating. This is also going to help when it comes to moving grates around if you need to. You never know when you're going to need these, and you pretty much use them all the time. So forget the rest of the garbage that's out there as far as these tools or whatever. All right, the gloves are a necessity. You have to have those. Tongs, spatula, that's really it. And then there is one other toy that I do like when I'm making my pulled pork, but we'll get to that once it's all done. All right, so a few more minutes on the coals, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so we are all set up and good to go. So let's talk about what happened. After we put the rub on the pork, I took the charcoal chimney and I pulled it onto that mountain of coals and wood. So that's kind of smoldering right there. I also put a drip pan underneath where the pork is going to be. That's going to catch all of that excess fat that comes from it. And again, remember, we wanted that fat cap side up, so that way that fat on that cap melts down and really helps moisturize that pork. Okay. Now the other thing is you want to set up your vents to allow for the smoke to go through and try to hit that pork. So I have two side vents. I have the one on this side here closed, this one open, and then on the top of the grill on the cover there, you can see on the left side there, there's actually a chimney, and I have that open. So that's going to allow for the smoke to go through. Every grill is different, every barbecue setup is different. So however you need to open and operate your vents to get the most smoke to hit that pork, the better, okay? Now after that, you're going to close it, set it and forget it, okay? You're going to check it every once in a while so you're not going to completely forget it. You want to make sure the temperature stays around 2 to 250. So right now mine's at about 275, 300. It's probably going to climb a little bit. When you first put it on, it's going to be hot. But then after that, it'll die down. The other thing I have on here is some hickory chunks and bucket of charcoal. So you're going to want those on hand, okay? All right, so we're back inside. Got the pork going right now. It's about 5:45, 5:50. So 12 hours from now, it will be done. All right, honestly, about an 8-pound pork. It'll probably be a little bit closer to 10 hours. All right, but there's no exact time. All right, just keep going out and checking it. So I go out and I check it probably once every hour. I'll probably check in a half hour just to make sure everything looks good. You don't want flare-ups, especially on a small grill. If you have a really big smoker, then you want some more fire to aid in the smoke. But for small grills and small barbecue setups, you don't want any major flare-ups because that's going to give a lot of intense heat, and we don't want that. That's why we set up that charcoal pile, so that way it slowly settles in and the heat kind of gets in and catches all those unlit coals. So check it probably once an hour. Again, you want the temperature to be around 2 to 250. Temperature control is really easy. If you notice that there's a flare up, you don't have to go and try to splash water on it or anything. If it flares up, shut all your vents. Okay, it needs air. So if it's too hot, shut your vents, it'll cool back down. If there's not enough heat, add more fuel. So add more wood and a little bit more charcoal. Okay, so around 2 to 250 for about 10 to 12 hours, and check in once every hour. And after that, then it's time to start shredding it. All right, so it's been going for about 45 minutes now. I had a little bit of a flare up, but just shut the vents down. Like I said, don't panic, don't stress it, don't try to like splash water on it or anything, right? Shut the vents, let it slowly die down, it'll be fine. The only other thing that I forgot to talk about was what type of wood I use. I use a chunk hickory wood. For the pulled pork, I found you really want to use a lighter wood. So like for me, hickory is the easiest to find, and you don't want like the little chips. You want actual nice chunks, and you can get a good bag of it at Home Depot or Lowe's or any of the stores. You want it bigger so that way it has more smoke and it lasts longer. And we're going to be doing this for 12 hours, so you want something that lasts, right? The bigger the size of the wood, the better. Now, if you're using like a traditional smoker, you'd actually use like some bigger logs almost. But you don't want to use like anything heavy like mesquite. You don't want a lot of the smoke to really take over. We're using the smoke to impart a little bit of the flavor, but you're really using it to really go through the meat and tenderize it. So the smoke is doing most of the cooking, and that's why it's a low temperature, right? So hickory to me is the best. It's the most easiest to find. And again, big chunks, okay, not wood chips, all right? All right, so right about now, it looks like it's done. I've had to throw a couple of wood chips on every once in a while, but not too much. It was done a little bit faster than I thought, about 7 hours. It was a little smaller than I'm used to as far as a Boston butt goes, but also it was warmer out, so that really aided in the temperature staying up. But that is done, so I'm going to transfer it to a cooking board, and then I'm going to tent that. All right, so I just brought the pulled pork in. It is pretty much done. One way you can check it is by taking a digital instant read thermometer, and it should read between 190 and 195, which this one is at. It's around 197 to 200 and change at some point. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go ahead and cut into this yet. So I'm going to take some tin foil, and if you notice here, I've got 2 pieces of tin foil that I folded the edges together so it makes one big blanket. And I'm just going to go ahead, cover this up, and I'm going to let it sit there and tent, and redistribute the heat for about a half hour before we go ahead and carve into this thing. Alright, so I just took it out of the tent. It's been about a half hour, and it is done. So, I told you earlier on that you don't need a lot of fancy equipment to make this. You need just a spatula and a pair of tongs, whatever it is, to get it from the cutting board, or from the grill to the cutting board. With one exception, these. You know what? I know, yes, I know I look like Wolverine, and I'm happy with that. But to me, I have found that it's a lot easier to use something like this, or I have another pin, even like something like these. Just because they're bigger tongs, it makes it easier to rip into. Can you use 2 forks? Absolutely. But I found that it's a little bit harder, and I'm sorry, these are just, it's cool. So go ahead and just, you're going to rip into it, rip apart that nice bark, and I mean, this is what the bone should look like when you do this. It should come off completely clean. Like there should be like virtually nothing on it. Now do keep in mind, it is still going to be hot, but there's your bone. All right, there's virtually nothing left on it still. All right, and I mean, honestly, at this point, it really is just go ahead and just start shredding it. Okay, shred the bark too. You want to get in there and get that good bark mixed in with everything. Okay, so you're just going to go in, shred it all up. Make sure you have a bowl standing by so you can go throw all of it into a bowl. Alright, so I have successfully completed shredding the pulled pork. I have my normal hands back, no more Wolverine claws.
Um, I've got this nice bark mixed in with the pork, and it tastes fantastic. If you haven't smelled it or tasted your pulled pork at this point, if you're making this, I don't know why. It just smells amazing, tastes awesome. Now, the only other thing left to do is decide what type of sauce you want to have with this. Now, this is a major, major talking point with no matter what part of the country you're in. Everybody has a different style of sauce that they use, depending on the part of the country you're talking about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a traditional Carolina sauce, which is a vinegar based. So what I've got here is 3/4 cup of cider vinegar. I've got half a cup of water, a 1/4 cup of ketchup, and a 1/4 cup of some sort of brown sugar, salt, and pepper. But for ease, I'm just using my brown sugar rub. All right, and that's got everything I want in it. Now, if you notice, it looks different than my rub. What I went ahead and did is I blended this. I have a NutriBullet, so I went ahead, blended it up in there. You can put it in any blender. And the reason I want to blend it is because I don't want it to get clogged in this thing. I have a nice little sauce bottle, and if you don't blend it, the pieces of chopped minced onion will get clogged in here. Okay, so I went ahead and blended that. So you're just going to go ahead, mix it all together in a bowl. So put in my cider vinegar. Now the reason I love this type of sauce is another thing I like to do is I like to go ahead and put coleslaw on top. So I've got this type of vinegar sauce, which is kind of tart, a little bit bitter, but a little bit sweet because of the brown sugar that's mixed in. But it's mostly tart, but it pairs nicely with coleslaw, which I love having in there. So just mix that up. And the dimensions that I gave you pretty much are going to fill this bottle exactly. So that's why I measured it exactly this way. And by the way, one bottle will last you basically an entire pulled pork. All right. Now, some people put it on right away. I like to put it in a squirt bottle because not everybody likes this, especially in my house. Meredith likes more of a mesquite flavor, so Casey Masterpiece is going to be her weapon of choice in this. The kids will like just regular ketchup. So everybody's got it different, so that's why I like to keep it separate. And then we're just going to go ahead, pour that in. And yeah, spot on. There it is. And take that out. And there it is. So, whenever you're ready, you got the pulled pork, you've got your sauce, whatever sauce it is. And like I said, I throw mine with a little bit of coleslaw on it, and it is good to go. Alright, so we're all done. This is how I like to have it. Alright, you got a whole bunch of that pulled pork, a little bit of the coleslaw on top. I've got that sauce in there. What I do is I usually take the pulled pork and put it in a bowl, and then I put the sauce on it, and then mix it all up, and then put it on the bun. But there it is. This is the end result right here. Hours of work. Let's see if it's worth it. Oh yeah. That bark in there, you can taste the smoke. Just everything about the flavors. The bark is just so prominent. A little bit of smoke, the meat. But the sauce with the vinegar is nice, and it pairs really nice. So you got the tart of the sauce, the creamy of the coleslaw. This is it right here. This is barbecue for me. This is it. So there is my pulled pork recipe, start to finish. One thing I didn't say before with the coals. If you're doing it in the summer, you may not want to put the unlit coals down first and then the hot coals on top. You just want to pour the chimney out first, and then once that cools down, maybe then add a couple of more. There's a huge difference in cooking whether you do it in the summertime or the winter, just due to the ambient heat. But this one took about 7 hours with the ambient heat and just the size of it. That was 8 pounds. And it probably yielded about 4 pounds of cooked pulled pork. If you get like a 12-pound pork shoulder, that'll probably take closer to 10 hours, 10, 11 hours, okay? Well, I'm going back to eating the rest of this. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you later.